There are countless shows about mechanics creating jaw-dropping cars and trucks, but anyone who's a fan of Diesel Brothers will tell you this one stood apart. The trucks weren't merely large, they were absolute beasts built to crush anything in their path. And right at the heart of that wild truck universe were two lifelong friends, Heavy D and Diesel Dave. They routinely poured tens of thousands of dollars into each project, stacking upgrade after upgrade until an ordinary truck looked anything but ordinary. But what if the trucks were only the visible part of the story? What if, beneath all the horsepower and chrome, there was a side of Diesel Dave's life that no fan would ever want to live through? This is the heartbreaking tragedy of Diesel Dave. We almost lost him, Dave, and I'm gaining speed a lot faster. I'm like, well, this is going to be a wild ride. This could be the end. That is the one thought. A few years ago, Heavy D released a video revealing an incident the Diesel Brothers had kept completely private for nearly 3 years. In that emotional upload he said words no fan ever expected to hear: "I nearly lost my best friend." That best friend was Diesel Dave. So what really happened? Heavy D has always had a deep fascination with snowcats, those enormous resort grooming machines that weigh close to 20,000 pounds, stretch 16 feet wide with their blades extended, and pack between 300 and 400 horsepower. They're engineered to climb impossible slopes and push massive walls of snow. He also owned a cabin near Farmington Peak in Utah. During summer you could drive right up the mountain road to reach it. But in winter everything changed. The Forest Service closed that road because it became far too dangerous. One particular stretch of that road was especially deadly. It ran along the edge of a sheer cliff. Above it loomed roughly 500 feet of vertical rock face. Below it dropped nearly 1,000 feet straight down. The road itself was only about 12 feet wide, sometimes narrower, and winter snow completely buried it. Drifts would pile 10 to 20 feet high until the road disappeared entirely, but Heavy D, being Heavy D, didn't avoid it. For years he took snowcats up there to carve the road open for snowmobilers and skiers. In January 2018 he and Diesel Dave decided to make the trip together, bringing their families along. By then Heavy D already owned 2 snowcats, an older gray one and his brand new red Piston Bully, freshly purchased at auction. Heavy D had years of experience running these machines in winter conditions, but Diesel Dave was still relatively new to operating them. This trip would be one of Dave's first real chances to drive a snowcat solo. On January 27, 2018, they loaded the families, kids included, into the 2 machines and headed up to the cabin. They spent the night there. The next day they decided to tackle the most hazardous section of the road, the cliffside stretch buried under massive drifts. Heavy D climbed into the red snowcat with his 7-year-old daughter Charlie and Diesel Dave. The gray cat stayed behind. At first everything went smoothly. The big red machine pushed forward, its blade slicing through the deep snow. Then, without warning, the slope above them gave way. A huge drift released. Snow roared down and slammed into the red cat, forcing it sideways toward the 1,000-foot drop. Suddenly the entire 20,000-pound machine was hanging half off the cliff. They didn't dare move another inch. Any shift in weight could tip it over the edge. Heavy D, Diesel Dave, and little Charlie froze inside the cab. After a tense moment they decided to shut the engine off and hike back to the cabin through waist-deep powder. Diesel Dave sprinted ahead to get help while Heavy D and Charlie followed. More slowly, making noise to scare off any coyotes in the darkness. When Dave reached the cabin he discovered the gray snowcat's battery was dead. They jump-started it, left the kids safely behind, and raced back to rescue the red machine. When they arrived, the red cat was still teetering on the brink. The plan was simple but dangerous: hook a chain between the 2 snowcats, use the gray one as an anchor, and slowly pull the red one back onto solid ground. For a brief second it looked like it would work. The gray cat dug in. The chain went tight. The red machine inched backward towards safety, then the chain snapped, the red snowcat lurched violently, twisted, and began sliding off the mountain, with Diesel Dave still inside. Heavy D could only watch in horror as the 20,000-pound beast spun, its headlights swinging wildly, then disappeared into the darkness as it plunged down the cliff. In that instant Heavy D was convinced he had just watched his best friend die. He dropped to his knees in the snow and screamed at the sky, begging God to save Dave. He faced an impossible choice: climb down the cliff on foot and risk his own life, or drive the gray snowcat around to the bottom. A quiet inner voice told him clearly, drive, don't walk. So he drove. Meanwhile, inside the tumbling red snowcat, Diesel Dave was living what he believed were his final seconds. He hadn't buckled his seatbelt. Normally a terrible decision, but in this case it saved his life. As the machine flipped and rolled, the windshield blew out, and Dave was ejected. Instead of being crushed inside the cab, he was thrown clear into deep, soft snow. He tumbled down the slope and finally came to rest buried up to his waist, dazed, in shock, barely able to move. He realized Heavy D might try to climb down the cliff to reach him, and if he did, they would both die. So Dave grabbed his phone. You might wonder, how could he possibly have cell service buried in snow at the bottom of a cliff? On the trail above, Heavy D's phone rang. When he saw Diesel Dave's name on the screen, he thought it was impossible. He had just watched him fall to his death. He answered, and heard Dave's voice, I think I'm okay. Heavy D raced the gray snowcat down the road, crossed a frozen pond, then ran uphill through chest-deep snow. At the base of the cliff he found shattered glass, twisted metal, and debris scattered across the slope, and then he heard Dave's voice again. His friend had been thrown clear immediately, landed in soft powder, and somehow avoided hitting the frozen pond below. If anything, even one small detail, had been different, he would have been gone. It was nothing short of a miracle that Dave was alive, but that night was only part of the story. To truly understand Diesel Dave, you have to know who he is, where he came from, and why so many fans feel such a strong connection to him. Who are the Diesel brothers? First things first, they are not actually brothers. Despite the name, the Diesel brothers are four big bearded friends from Utah who share one massive passion: diesel trucks. The core crew consists of David, Heavy D, Sparks David, Diesel Dave, Kylie Catan, The Muscle, Hoskins Joshua, Redbeard, Stewart. So how did it all begin? Heavy D started things by opening a diesel truck dealership. At first the focus was simple: buy older or broken down trucks, fix them up, and sell them for a profit. But the builds kept getting bigger and more extreme. Soon they realized they could do far more than just flip pickups. Heavy D and Diesel Dave began posting videos on Facebook and YouTube to attract customers. Those videos weren't only about trucks, they added pranks, funny skits, and over-the-top antics to keep people watching. One of those early videos exploded in popularity, so much so that it landed them an appearance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Believe it or not, a small diesel shop in Utah went straight to late-night national television. That single appearance changed everything. Shortly afterward, the Discovery Channel took notice. In January 2016, Diesel Brothers premiered on Discovery. And it didn't take long for viewers to get hooked. Each episode followed the crew buying trucks, building outrageous machines, and occasionally destroying them in spectacular fashion. They became famous for turning average pickups into jaw-dropping monsters, and then, in many cases, giving those trucks away to deserving fans. By 2019 the show had grown so popular that Discovery renewed it for a sixth season, which aired in December. In 2020 they took it even further with a 3-hour special titled Diesel Brothers, Monster Jam, Breaking World Records, a full-blown Monster Jam event where they pushed their trucks beyond anything anyone had seen before. Their projects were insane. Heavy D once took a beat-up rock crawler, rebuilt it from the ground up, Just to flip it. Another time they were hired to build a 1,000-gallon fuel truck and custom fertilizer spreaders for a helicopter company. Heavy D tried salvaging a wrecked overland camper he bought from Europe, hoping it would turn a big profit. The crew constantly rebuilt and upgraded trucks in every direction. Sam even built what they jokingly called the most dangerous minibike ever, using spare shop parts. Professional off-road racer R.J. Anderson brought his brand new Ford Raptor to Heavy D asking for upgrades. They squared off against other custom shops like Goon's Garage and Welder Up in head-to-head competitions. Of course, not every project went perfectly. Heavy D once attempted a Cummins-swapped K5 Blazer with a matching trailer for a client, but the deal fell apart. Some builds succeeded wildly, others ended in spectacular failure, but whether they won or lost, they always made it entertaining. Another memorable project turned an old K5 Blazer and truck bed into the ultimate diesel party wagon. Diesel Dave brought his beloved El Camino back to life with Heavy D's help. For one of their biggest builds, Heavy D went all in on a SEMA 6x6 truck fitted with a custom track system capable of handling any terrain. At the same time, Diesel Dave finally finished his dream El Camino, and revealed it at Monster Jam. So why do fans love this show so much? It wasn't only the trucks, the guys brought a completely different energy. They had inside jokes, wild ideas, and treated every build like a crazy adventure. As Redbeard once put it, people love it. And Heavy D explained it perfectly. You wouldn't think there are millions of people dedicated to diesel trucks, but there are. That's the Diesel Brothers story in a nutshell. For friends who started by flipping trucks, turned it into viral videos, landed a spot on late-night TV, and built a worldwide fan base with Discovery Channel. And if you're wondering how they all met, buckle up for another wild ride. How Diesel Dave and Heavy D became the Diesel Brothers. David Sparks, Heavy D, and David Kiley, Diesel Dave, love telling the story of how their friendship actually started. They didn't meet at a car show or in a garage, they met at a church singles event. The whole point was to meet girls, but instead Sparks and Kiley found each other. That was years ago, and it became the foundation of a friendship and business partnership that eventually grew into something massive. Their headquarters are in Salt Lake City, Utah, and they've built an empire. Sparks Motors is the main shop where the trucks are born and transformed. Diesel Power Gear is their lifestyle brand, selling clothing, accessories, and truck parts to fans. Diesel Sellers is an online marketplace that functions like Craigslist, but exclusively for trucks. On top of that, they're famous for their massive truck giveaways. Almost every major build ends with one lucky fan driving away in a fully custom machine. Whenever a giveaway happens, all their companies usually sponsor and participate, creating a powerful loop where every brand feeds into the others. One signature element that sets their builds apart is their heavy use of military surplus parts. Viewers frequently notice trucks running 2.5-ton axles, 6-wheel drive systems, and other components rarely seen on civilian vehicles. According to Heavy D, these choices aren't just for looks, they're about durability. They need parts that can handle extreme abuse in brutal conditions. He also points out the economics. They can buy a surplus military axle for around $500, even though the government originally paid tens of thousands. The only difference? The military no longer needs it. That access to military-grade components has led some fans to wonder whether any of the crew has a military background. The answer: neither Sparks nor Kiley ever served. But their families do have deep military roots. Kiley once tried to join as a helicopter pilot but was disqualified due to a shoulder issue. Sparks's father served in the Air Force, his grandfather in the Army, and his brother in the Marines. While Heavy D would have liked to serve, he admits he probably wouldn't have had the patience for constant orders. Instead, he feels that through their work, building trucks, creating jobs, supporting the diesel community, they're still contributing in their own way. For many diesel enthusiasts, jumping from a standard Dana 60 axle to a 2.5-ton military axle seems extreme. Heavy D explains it simply: a Dana 60 feels like a